So another success story, and Tammy Reinhardt. So girls, do y'all want to come up and tell your stories? Allison. Yeah, can we just give Allison a big round of applause for putting this thing together? No, but she works her behind off.
Okay, let me get...
Okay, we're doing some adjustments. We have a lot of great prizes today, too. I hope everybody put their name in to all the baskets. There's some on the main table up where you registered. Did everybody get a chance to put their name in there? Because we really do some good stuff. And then each booth, of course, you can put your name in as well.
Hi, before I get started, I would greatly appreciate, we have, I'm sure as you all know because you've already parked, but we have a severe parking issue this year. We have a lot of space this year, but now it's parking. So we will have to put our brains together to figure that out for next year. But if you are on the ends, could you do me a big favor? It's kind of like church. Could you scoot to the middle here and the middle here? That way the people that come in towards there's still people checking in and coming in. That way they have a spot to sit and they don't have to jump over you and whatnot. So yeah, just come this way, come this way. I know. No one wants the front. Oh, we got a brave souls. No one wants the front row. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Like Judy said, my name is Allison Spencer, and I am the president of Kansas City Infertility Awareness. And I will go into a spiel later on about how we formed. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of info about my story. About 5 years ago, I had a 4-year-long journey. About 5 years ago, my husband and I did what many of you maybe in the process of right now is you try for a year, what they always tell you, and then after a year, go to your OB, and if you have problems, go to find an RE and whatnot. We did that. With my OB, we did all of the test your tubes and make sure that they're all clear, and we did the Clomid for way too long. And then I went to an RE, and we did I started IUI in the beginning. We did 2 IUIs. They didn't work. And so at that point, it was 14 months of just feeling like a complete failure. So emotionally and mentally, we took a break, and we knew the next step would be in vitro. And of course, as you all know, in vitro is not cheap, so we had to save for in vitro. We saved for in vitro, and in July of 11, we did an in vitro cycle, and unfortunately, it did not work. It was probably the most devastating part of our journey. I can't even put into words the craziness that we both went through. And my husband, I was very crazy, and my wonderful husband had to put up with me. And we decided to go through and do another in vitro. So we were gearing up to do an in vitro in July of 12. My husband and I are both teachers, so doing an in vitro in the summer lends itself very nicely to having our summers off. So we were gearing up to do an in vitro in July of 12 last summer, and found out that we were pregnant naturally. It was very, we didn't believe it in the beginning. I had to do 7 or 8 tests because I never had a positive. There's several factors that play into that: male factor, female factor. I'm not a spring chicken by any means, so my egg quality wasn't the best, and we found that out through the in vitro process. And throughout the whole process, I realized, and I keep going on and on, and I will stop in a second. Throughout the whole process, yes, it's devastating, but I wouldn't have changed anything for the world. It taught me a lot about my body. It taught me a lot about my relationship with my husband and my relationship with God. And I wouldn't change any of it for the world, even though it was the toughest thing that we've ever had to go through in our entire life. I do have a picture to show you. My husband, he's in the back, he's filming today. Our husbands are a wonderful support system for us, so we really appreciate them with all this. They put up with us, our craziness for the last few months. And then that is 3 months ago, that was Simon, his 3-month pick. He's actually 6 months old today, which is kind of ironic that it's on the conference day. But I'll stop talking and give it over to Tammy, because I've talked way too long.
All right, well, I am Tammy Reinhardt, and it's funny, Jeannie and I were talking. I actually wrote my journey down. It's like, how do we forget it? But it seems to kind of, I don't know, you get to a point where you move past it. And anyway, I owe a lot to Allison. Oops, that's not me. That's not me either. There I am. Like the other girls, I actually had this illusion of getting off the pill and planning, and we got off the pill in July, and we were going to be pregnant by the holidays. We were going to tell everybody at Christmas, and it was just all planned out. So I get off the pill, and I'm going to apologize to the men if this makes you uncomfortable, but it's the way it goes. You probably know way too much anyway at this point. But I got off the pill, and I'm waiting for my period. And as many of you, or all of you women know, that's a rather integral part of the process. So I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I keep waiting, and months go by, never have a cycle. So I talked to my OB, and she's like, well, we can give you something to kickstart your period. And I'm like, great, so should we try? And she's like, no, you're not going to ovulate, you're just going to bleed. I'm like, great. So anyway, my point is that we quickly knew that we were not going to be able to conceive naturally, easily. So we immediately went to an RE and pursued treatment. We were on the fast track. I'm like, we're just going to skip past all this IUI stuff, and we're just going straight to in vitro, and we will be pregnant by the summer, because that was my plan. So we did that, and instead of getting pregnant, we just spent a lot of money. So we did an in vitro cycle, which did not work, and we extracted 27 eggs, so we were like, sweet, we are done, we're going to have our twins, Well, out of the 27, we were able to maintain 4, transfer 2, so again, twins, totally, neither took. So then we had our 2 that we were going to transfer after the fact, again, my twins, and the day of the transfer, neither survived their thaw. So that was like a kick in the gut. We had no idea they couldn't survive the thaw. So that was an interesting experience, needless to say. So then we did backtrack and thought, okay, I had a little bit of insurance covered that covered IUIs, so we went back to IUIs, did I think 5 or 6 rounds of those. We also sought treatment through a male fertility doctor, because I had my issues, but my husband also wasn't the spring chicken, I guess we'll call it that. Sorry, babe, if you're in here. Anyway, that's him. You can find him. Like, so then this past fall of 2011, we ended up doing another in vitro cycle, and we were able to fortunately get pregnant that time, and Jude was born on July 24th of 12. So just to mimic what the other girls said, I started to thank Allison, just because if you guys aren't in a support group, I would highly encourage you. The reason, and I know Allison will get into this, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but the real reason that this formed was because Allison had this vision of starting a support group, and it was me and Allison and Megan and Nicole, and we literally every month just went and talked about how painful this is and how difficult this is, and everybody gets pregnant but you, and everybody posts on Facebook, and everybody emails that they're pregnant, and it's so easy for everybody but you, and just to get together and to talk and to cry, and it that got us through this. And so anyway, when Allison sent her email, I've known her husband for years, and we've been friends for a long time, and she sent the email that they were struggling. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And so anyway, I'm totally stealing your thunder, Allison, I'm sorry, but this has just been huge for all of us. So I'll stop rambling and hand it to Nicole.
Just don't hit delete.
So I'm Nicole Hayes. I'm the Vice President of Kansas City Infertility Awareness. And I'm going to kind of skip forward. We tried for a year. About 4 years into it, we had tried insemination. We had male stuff going on and female stuff going on. One of the things was both of my tubes were damaged, and again, those are an integral part of getting pregnant. So we decided, we were at the point we either had to choose in vitro or we had to go towards adoption, and we just decided that in vitro was not where we felt led to go at the time, and we registered with the local adoption agency. We've been trying for 4 years at that point. We ended up having a private adoption situation that came to us, and ended up not coming to completion, and that was, we had taken care of the baby for 3 weeks, and so that was a really heartbreaking part of our journey. But literally, our son was growing in someone else's womb at that point in time. We just didn't know he existed yet. So in April 2nd of 2011, I have to keep straight when he was born, we got a call from a friend of a friend saying, hey, are you guys still wanting to adopt? And we were like, yeah, we absolutely want to adopt. We're just waiting. We've been waiting with the agency for about 7 months. We've been home study ready at that point. And they came and had dinner at our house the next week, I think. And she just chose us to be the adoptive parents for her son. And in June, so 2 months later, our son was born. We got to go to the hospital and take care of him. His name is Tucker. He's the oldest one in this picture. He's now 22 months old and ornery as all get out. We love him dearly. And Tucker turned 1 in June of, June of last year, right? Yes, June of last year. I can't keep my dates straight. So June of last year he turned 1, and 8 weeks after his first birthday we found out we were shockingly pregnant. So if I had a dime for every time somebody has said, see, you adopted and you got pregnant, I can pay for any treatment or adoption that any of you needed. So we have been that myth. We're so thankful. This is Tanner. Tanner was born February 23rd, so he's just 8 weeks old. Just complete change in 2 years from when this first conference happened for us. We can't believe the journey that we've been on and how everything has happened, and I will mimic what they said in that we're so thankful that we're at this point, but we wouldn't give up where we've come from, what we've learned about ourselves, the people that have touched our lives, being able to have this organization. One thing I did want to say is when we were considering adoption, which I'm sure some of you are, something that would come up was, there's a couple of different things that came up. Well, I feel the same way about an adopted child that I'll feel about my biological child. And that was something that I think it's normal to wonder that, because you don't know what either one is going to feel like. Now that I've been able to experience both, I can't even tell you how I feel. I'll cry talking about them, but absolutely the same. I mean, I say sometimes, well, when I was pregnant with Tucker, oh wait, I wasn't pregnant with Tucker. Oh, when we got Tanner, oh wait, I was pregnant with Tanner. Like, I don't remember the difference. The journeys were completely different, but I mess up all the time talking about them. So if you have any questions about either one or anything like that, I'm an open book. I'll share anything with anybody. Another something that comes up is, well, you don't have control when you're pregnant, when somebody else is pregnant and carrying your child. You don't have any control over what they're doing or if something's going to be wrong with the baby. And if I'm pregnant, I'm going to have that control. The son that came to us through adoption, he, perfectly healthy at birth, completely just no problems at all. My son, that I didn't drink caffeine, I didn't have my hair colored, if you name it, I didn't do it while I was pregnant. I barely ate or anything, and he was born with a heart condition. So it just goes to show that we don't have control, and your child is going to be your child. So that's something else. If you have questions about that, like I said, find me. My husband's back in the corner. We're both willing to share our stories. So I wish you guys all the best. And I'm actually, since Megan's not here, I'm going to get to share her story a little bit too. How do I do this? Hit this. There's Megan. So Megan is just newly home. Megan and I's journeys are a little bit similar. She was able to get pregnant with just minimal fertility treatment 5 years ago now. And her daughter Annabelle was born at 35 weeks, stillborn. So that was, she had tried for 2 years, I think, before they got pregnant with Annabelle. So that was heartbreaking. And then they kind of did some more fertility treatments, nothing. They never went to in vitro either. They felt like they wanted to pursue adoption, and they decided to do a domestic adoption of an infant also. And their wait was not very long. I think it was about 6 months that they waited. And they ended up being able to adopt out of Florida. Sammy is the product of that process, and he was 2 in March, so she had adopted him just right before our first conference. And then she found out 9 months ago, obviously, that she was pregnant just completely naturally too. Megan had been able to get pregnant naturally, and she's had multiple miscarriages. They were gearing up, they had started the adoption home study process for a second time, and then she found out she was pregnant. So now we're both perpetuating that myth. So they just brought Blake home, and he's doing great. And
They brought me on
Wednesday. Yeah, he was just born Monday, so she's not with us this year. But if you guys have any questions, describe any of us, and we'll be happy to share. Thank you.
Something that Tammy touched on is we highly recommend a support group. I know the stigma that goes along with it, support group, I don't need a support group, only those people go to support group. But it literally was our lifeline during those many years. There were a few months where our schedules were so crazy busy that we emailed each other the day of, said, okay, oh my gosh, I can't make it today. And then, pretty soon all 4 of us were really busy and we couldn't make it. And literally that was the month from hell because we didn't have our outlet that month to just talk about our struggles. So I highly recommend the support group. Us 4 met in a support group that I started through my church, and for the longest time it was just us 4. And then some new people came on, and they were there for a few months, and then they got pregnant, and then it was us 4 again. And during that process, we watched there's a news program, I think on the Today Show, that said, if you're in a support group, the stats of getting pregnant are so high. And we're like, oh, well, us 4 aren't really helping that statistic. But so then we were in a support group for a year, and then one December, I had I like to dream big, and sometimes my dreams pan out, and sometimes they don't. And I emailed the other 3, and I said, hey, what do you guys think about starting a conference every year? I really feel like we need to start a conference in the Kansas area because there are so many people going through what we're going through, and they don't want to talk about it. And so January of 11, that was in December of 2010, and in January of 11 we started planning and had our first conference 2 years ago, and we had about 200 people show up. And then we had our second annual last year, and again we had about 200 people. And then this year is we have a larger registration. As of 5 o'clock this morning, we were at 214, but I know that several of you have come in, so I would assume we're about 225, so which is awesome. We're continuing to grow. This year we added 4 new board members. Jenny is one of our new board members, and we have 3 in the back, Angie, and Jacqueline, and Michelle. So they have been a godsend this year. It's been very nice to have 8 instead of 4 planning this. So that's kind of the origination in a nutshell. You can go onto our website and find out even more info, but we need to get the party started.
And yeah, like we said, all of us are open books. There's pretty much nothing you can't ask us. We are, you just need that person to talk to, and we can definitely help you out with anything. So, okay, let's get started. Let's talk about our keynote speaker. Sarah Howard is going to talk to us today. Her presentation is titled, Surviving the Roller Coaster of Infertility. Isn't that the truth? Please welcome Sarah Howard.
First, I want to thank KCIA for having me. Oh, thank you for having me this morning. It really is an honor to be here with all of you. And I promise I'll start talking soon when we get this up. Let's talk about a definition. Like someone mentioned earlier, probably many of you have been on the internet. You know what infertility is. There might be some of you here with someone else, and you may not know exactly what that definition is. There are a lot of definitions out there for infertility, but I personally like the one from MayoClinic.com. that says 10 to 15% of couples in the United States are infertile. Infertility is defined as not being able to get pregnant despite having frequent unprotected sex for at least a year or for at least 6 months if the woman is age 35 or older. Here's my definition. It's a little different. A horrific roller coaster of positive and negative emotions that tend to burst forth when any baby, child, or pregnant woman or related items are present. A constant state of high emotions. So I don't know if that's similar at all to yours or not, but that's my definition. William Kircher, MD, a specialist in fertility, writes that patients often explain their emotions as feeling like they were going crazy. He states that many of his patients experience depression leading to crisis. I want you all to know this morning, and you've probably already figured this out from the group sharing their stories, that you are not crazy and you're not alone in your emotions. It can make you feel a little crazy, but you're not alone if you just look around you at all these people here this morning. So we have already kind of had a panel of experts this morning kind of sharing what it's been like for them. But I did some interviews. This is not professional camera work at all. This is me using my small little video camera, videoing people, asking them what infertility is like for them. So we're going to watch just a really short little video and see what some others having this experience have to say. And I do want to say before I start this, these are all people in this who are more in the acceptance phase. It was actually very, very hard to get anyone to do an interview who is currently going through it. So that just shows the pain. And men, all around, really hard to get to do an interview.
Heather, what was infertility like for you?
It was really just a lonely feeling. When I was trying to get pregnant, I didn't know anyone else who wasn't able to. And I really knew a lot of people who were pregnant and just kept feeling just very alone, almost ashamed. It's just something when you grow up, you're expected. You know, you just grow up thinking you get married and you have babies. And I just felt almost like I was failing my family at the time. You know, my husband and I were trying and I just wasn't able to. And it was just really, really a sad feeling.
Janine, what was infertility like for you?
For myself and my husband, Dan, we didn't seek out the specialized treatments for us. It was more things we just weren't blessed with a child, things weren't happening for us. And we just didn't, in our hearts, it wasn't for us to seek further treatment to have a child. We have to come to peace with that. We have 16 nieces and nephews, and we're very involved in all of their lives. And they look at us as surrogate parents, and we also have animals in our lives that have helped fill that void. And we also did not even look at other options like adoption, that kind of thing. We just were at peace with it and fine. And so I think it's different for everybody.
Infertility for me was more of just a shock, disbelief, and being in constant denial after a year went by. I never expected any of this. I had a plan about how we were going to raise our family, and it never came true that way. But I just felt like a sense of helplessness and shock and disbelief.
Amy, can you tell me what the hardest thing was for you about being infertile?
You know, I think what you said, the weight gain, the crazy feelings, wanting to kill people, never getting periods aside, which are kind of the opposite. I think people they expect it to be one specific thing. And the thing about being infertile and not being able to have children is that that's everything you do every day. Driving in the car and glancing your back seat. Your back seat's pretty car seats.
you ever have a child. So it's not even living in the present, it's everything going forward. You ask all the time, what do you expect to be doing in 5 years? What do you expect to be doing in 10 years? And your plan your whole life is to be a mother, and you're suddenly thinking about that, and there are no children, or even grandchildren. It's a big mystery, and you live without heartache.
Amy, can you show me without words how infertility felt to you? I'm sure some of you can relate to some of those experiences, some of those feelings. We all cope differently, we all feel differently, but I'm sure you can recognize some of those. And I know that everyone usually likes to hear the outcomes. So the first one, Heather, has a 4-year-old little girl through birth. The second one, Janine, as you could probably tell in hers, her and her husband never did conceive, and they are kind of surrogate parents to their nieces and nephews. The third one, the male, the reason I had a male, it's my husband and he had to. Otherwise I wouldn't have got one, and I tried, I really did. And then the last one, Amy, she adopted her first child, and then she has 2 others through birth also. So I'll tell you just a little bit about our story. My husband and I started the process at a young age. We were married at 21 and 22, and I'm 35 now. We were high school sweethearts. We were married young. I was through college at that time. I was a young one through college. I had a good job as a dialysis RN, and he was in pharmacy school. We had our own new small little home, not new, but it was new to us. We had traveled, we had been married a few years. We were really living the Midwest dream, and in the Midwest dream, what's next? Babies, that's right. I had it planned too. I'm a planner. I had it all planned out, exactly how it was going to work, when we were going to have those babies. And we started trying to conceive when I was 23, which was a good thing for us. Everyone kept telling us because we were young, and it didn't happen. I'm working on a book right now to encourage those with infertility, and I just want to read a little section of that to you. 11 years ago, I sat on my bed sobbing. I cried so hard that my stomach muscles ached and I could not take a breath. I once again walked into the bathroom with my breath held and saw the negative sign on the little plastic stick that I had become so familiar with over the past year. My heart sank to my stomach. We had just finished another treatment. I had new hope. The doctor said he was sure I would be pregnant. This was it, the last time. My husband and I had agreed that 3 artificial inseminations were enough. After that, we would be done trying. Done with this crazy monthly roller coaster ride. We had to stick with our new plan. I could not bear the thought of sharing the disappointment with him. He had seemed so confident throughout the whole time that pregnancy would happen. Maybe the test was wrong. Have you ever thought that? Maybe it was too soon to take the test. I tried to convince myself that there was still hope, yet somehow I knew the test was right, and once again, I was not pregnant. My husband had been so strong, he had not shared the nagging concern that I continually had that we might not be parents. He thought most of my fears were just an overreaction. He had stayed positive, but this night, reality hit my husband. He cried. I cannot believe it did not happen. I really thought it would. I remember as a very little girl putting babies under my shirt pretending I was pregnant. I would then pop them out with no true knowledge of how they actually arrived, and then hold them and care for them. Being a mom was the one thing in life I was sure of. I always knew I was made to be a mom, but I felt this dream was shattered. Our home was organized, clean, and quiet. Too quiet. We felt an emptiness and a loneliness. I had a deep ache in my heart that only someone who has yearned for a child can truly understand. All I could think about was babies and being a mom. These thoughts affected the way I looked at everything in life. There were days I would truly try, but I could not get having a family off of my mind. It was about 6 months of trying that I knew that there was a problem. My husband didn't quite see it that way yet. But after about a year, we did IUI with Clomid 3 times, and all of those failed. Every single time our specialist told us we would conceive. We're kind of the opposite story. You know how you have the people, oh, you'll never conceive, and then they do. We're kind of the opposite. We kept being told, everything looks perfect. You are going to conceive. This is it. You will be pregnant. And then once again, we weren't. I did have a laparoscope. That's something they tend to do near the end of our treatments to look for a cause, and none was found. Everything looked great. And as time went on, about the age of 28, I started having a lot of pain and endometriosis, and I went through a few surgeries and ended up having a hysterectomy at the age of 29. And many of you probably know when you do not conceive or become pregnant, you're at much higher risk for endometriosis. So I think that was something that just came along a little bit later. I did not ever conceive, but I am a mother, and I'll tell you just a little bit more about that soon. What we have to deal with when going through infertility. All of the wonderful advice. Just relax and stop trying. Adopt and you will get pregnant. You are young. This one we heard all the time because we were pretty young. You are young. You have plenty of time. Please take my children. And I can't tell you how many times, I never did it, but how many times I wanted to say, go get your lawyer, I'll send the papers. But I never was brave enough to do it. You don't know what you're asking for. We all know rearing children. You have nieces and nephews and friends. We know it's not all lollipops and gumdrops, right? Does that mean we don't want them? No, we still want that. Anybody else want to share some of their great advice they get? We have any others out there? Nobody? Oh, here's one. Pray. That's great advice. Great.
But God wants you to be parents. It'll happen.
It'll happen. Yeah, there's a lot of great advice you get. Well, one of my favorites, personally, that I thought I was going to die was when both of my grandparents in their 80s sat me down and told me all of the different sexual positions we needed to try. I could not look at them for a long time. It's one of my worst. You also have to deal with taking your temperature, or ovulation tests, or charting, or checking your mucus, or all those different things. It consumes your thoughts. Running to the doctor's office or pharmacy if you're going through treatments. Oh, I gotta go pick up my meds, or I gotta go get inseminated, or whatever we gotta do, or riding in the car. I'll never forget one Sunday morning, riding in the car with my skirt, and you know you have to put the cup in between your legs to get it, keep it warm, going to get inseminated, and I thought, I hope I don't get pulled over. How am I going to explain this? Planning out sex. There's a lot of sex planning. Sex becomes a whole different world. It's more the women using the men than it was before. The men using the women. Your future feels on hold. Work plans, house plans, financial plans, all of that revolves around children, right? So it's hard to plan. Being hypersensitive to every change in your body. How many of you know this? Oh, I'm a little bloated. Oh, maybe. Oh, that's got to be a sign of pregnancy. I mean, just everything that happens. Or I'm really hungry. I bet I'm pregnant. You also have to deal with hearing from all the parents who don't want their children. Amy in the video mentioned the grocery store, and I've heard a lot of other women mention that too. I mean, how many times do you hear parents like screaming at their kids in the grocery store, I don't like you, or just saying terrible, horrible things. It's just, can be a hard place to be sometimes. Relatives. I personally had a cousin that actually lived with us for years, so she was like a sister who was a teenager who was pregnant at the time that I was going through infertility, and guess who got to take care of her most of the time and run her all over and to the doctor? That was pretty tough. She did not want that baby, and that was pretty tough. Other relatives, also my husband and I each have one sister, and during the same time, both of our sisters were pregnant. I could not escape it. It was all around. And so I would try to escape at work sometimes. I worked full time at the time. But then everyone around me there got pregnant, so it's just hard to escape. And then the ones that are disappointed because they're pregnant, that can be really hard. Choking back tears when you hear good news or attend family events or baby showers. It's not that you're not happy for those people, it's just you want that joy that you're seeing them have. And those events can be really hard. Marital and financial problems, a home that is too quiet and feels empty. Hormone changes from the typical cycle, from medications, from miscarriages, and the physical recovery. I personally, thank God, never had to go through a miscarriage. And for those of you women out there who have, I am so sorry that you've had to deal with that, because I know the intense excitement of pregnancy has to be a super high, and then you have a super loss when you lose that baby. Being the different family, not being invited. We were not invited to a lot of things because we didn't have kids. I'm thinking, we can come to that birthday party too. My husband can act like a 2-year-old. We can't escape it, so we have to survive it. I personally, some of you out here, especially some of you men, you can be a little tougher than us women, but some of you might say, life is hard, it is what it is, deal with it, and move on. And for those of you who can do that, that's awesome, make your plan, move forward. But some of us need a little more gentle approach. And for those of us who do, we're going to talk a little bit more about coping. For me, it was my faith that really helped me survive. However, infertility can be a faith shaker. Many of us with faith can ask, God, how is this fair? There are so many unplanned pregnancies and neglected children. I can provide a good and loving home. How is this fair? Are you punishing me? There's a lot of questions with that. I personally found my answers in the Bible and my comfort in prayer, as she mentioned earlier. And there were some verses that really helped me, and I'm just going to share a couple of those. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Another one that's not as common, and I'll explain to why it meant so much to me, but it says, in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. We will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. I was reminded with this verse that God never promised us this world would be perfect. He never promised us an easy life. There are trials. This world is full of trials. There were women in the Bible who suffered from infertility. Some were blessed with a miracle and some were not. Some things, really bad things, can happen to good people, and we can't always answer why. Part of it is just we live in a fallen world where some of our consequences are just from generations of certain behaviors, but we just can't always answer, and we can kill ourselves trying to figure out that answer that there's not always an answer to. But I do believe God works overall for the greater good, and He can take anything bad and turn it into something great. This verse reminded me that no matter what happened, no matter what my answer or my outcome was, that I could have peace. And I desperately needed peace. It reminded me that the overall bigger and eternal picture is a whole lot brighter. I've been, here's another quote. This was something that my sister, who is also a psychologist, so I had my own personal psychologist. It was really nice. We're best friends too, so she would tell me like it was. But I personally had a really hard time with myself, letting myself grieve. Because I would tell myself, I have my health. I work with chronically ill patients as an RN, so I knew what a blessing health is. I would tell myself, I have my health, I have a great husband, I have a good job, I have a house to live in and food to eat. Why am I taking this so hard? Why do I feel like my heart is getting ripped out all the time? Every time I see a little baby, why is this so hard? And my sister would remind me, she would say, you have to go through a grieving process. This is a loss. This is a loss. And you have to allow yourself that. So you can't just say, I'm just crazy, I'm losing my mind. It is grieving, and you have to go through that. I'm working on a book right now to encourage those with infertility, and I've been doing a lot of research. I've been reading books and websites, and everywhere I go, one thing I continually see and hear them say is this is a grieving process. And many of you have probably seen the known stages of grieving that are listed here, and many of you are probably somewhere in them. First, like my husband, denial. The beginning, we're in denial, then anger and bargaining, depression, acceptance. We all go through them at different rates, and you can, some of the books will say that you can go back. For example, you might be in acceptance, you hardly think about babies or infertility, you've moved on in your life, and then all of a sudden, someone really close to you gets pregnant. And then you might go back into that anger or depression for a little bit. So what do we do? How do we survive this? How do we cope? Staying healthy, big one. We cope better when our bodies are at their highest potential. Healthy bodies are also known to increase fertility on top of it. We need adequate sleep to be able to cope. Even right now, if I don't get enough sleep, I'm like, you know, we're just, you're edgy anyway, even if you're not dealing with a crisis. But if you're dealing with a crisis and you don't have enough sleep, it's going to be harder. Good nutrition, exercise. I could go on about this one. There is really good research out there that shows that exercise is just as adequate, if not better, in some people than antidepressants. So it's a mood lifter and it keeps your body healthy. Spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, quiet time is also shown to improve the body's health. Get counseling. Find the right therapist. And out there this morning I saw a bunch, so you're in the right place for that. Finding a positive, neutral friend to talk to. We don't want to overuse any one person. Like even our spouse, we don't want to talk about it to them all the time, and we don't want to lose a best friend because we can't stop talking about it or focusing on it. But there are a lot of different ways to cope and a lot of different areas that you can put your focus. So find that friend, have your husband. Journaling is one that I've used often. I would get in bed and I would write all of my thoughts down before I would go to sleep. And then I would be able to sleep and I would feel much better. Support groups, there's all kinds of them. Making a plan. Move forward. Don't get stuck in depression or denial or bargaining. Don't get stuck there. Get a therapist to help you get out. Age does matter. Age matters with adoption. Age matters with infertility treatments. So don't get stuck in that. Creating boundaries. Specific books to miscarriage that can help in that area with coping. Helping others, community service are great things to do. Being a big brother, a big sister, a Sunday school teacher. Even if you're not ready for adoption, there are many kids with absent parents who need adult examples. You may have to limit certain events like baby showers or weddings at certain times in your grieving. Vacation. I love to get away. We would take a vacation and we would not talk about it or think about it. Throwing eggs was something Nicole, I don't see her in here, but she shared last year. And my sister, the psychologist, looked at this and goes, throwing eggs? I said, yeah. She goes, I like it. My husband and I sat there and thought, well, that's a super great idea. Why didn't we think of that? And then I thought, well, we live in town and our neighbors probably wouldn't appreciate the stench. But it sounds really fun. Looking for the positives. You can find some. And if you can try to focus on those a little bit more, it can be really helpful. It is like a wound. It hurts badly at first. Some wounds heal slow and some fast. There usually will be a scar that can be a little sensitive. Personally, my husband really isn't sensitive about any of it anymore. I personally, the hardest part for me really is never experiencing birth or breastfeeding. That's a little bit tough for me. However, I tell myself, there are those women who say it's the best thing they ever did, best experience ever, but you can find them who say it was the worst thing they ever did too, and I try to focus on that one. Okay, a quick survey. Raise your hand if you have been in any kind of argument with your spouse because they were not reacting to infertility like you thought they should. Okay, it's tough, isn't it? You're both hurting. You have to learn how to support each other through the trials, and we have to remember that we all grieve differently. This is super important. My husband couldn't do anything right. He couldn't even say he was sorry, right? Leanne Nelson, LCSW, has 20 years of experience in human services. We're running a little short on time, so I'm not going to read her thoughts, but come by and see me. I'll be at a table if you want to hear what she said about the differences in coping in men and women. Chris Probasco at LCSW has specialized in infertility counseling since 1972. She states, the most common issues I see are jealousy, envy, and obsession, all leading to relationship problems. Obsession can cause many problems, including ignoring spouse's wants and needs, making impulsive decisions. Decide ahead of time what treatments you're willing to do and how much money you're willing to spend, because those are two big fights. My husband and I received that advice, and we're so thankful. We actually did that, and we knew when we were done, we were done. It can cause self-focus. Obsession can cause problems with other relationships. Friends, parents, if they're just tired of hearing you focus about it, talk about it. Dr. Stephen Pringle, a marriage counselor for 40 years, he shares one way to prevent obsession. And by the way, he's also my father. I'm the black sheep, the RN in the family. I don't do therapy, but my family does. He says to decide on an amount of time each day that you will schedule and allow yourselves to concentrate on or discuss infertility. A healthy amount of time would be 30 minutes to an hour per day. Depending on the couple, over 1 hour could prove to be unhealthy. If you begin to think or talk about it, remind yourself that you will have a time for that later. Now, if one of you are a big talker, you may have to separate. I get 15 minutes, he gets 15 minutes. And then you're done. That way you're heard, you listen, and it's done. Your thoughts are out for the day. Sex is not just a task. Try to keep it romantic and fun. Got to keep a little pep in the marriage and not make it just a job. Work together to rebuild your dreams. After acceptance, you can work on rebuilding dreams. You can find a sense of control by looking at your options. We all have different paths and endings. Medical treatments, birth, adoption, surrogacy, embryo adoption, living childless, and being a parent to children around you. My husband and I, our path was after our IUIs failed, we decided to take some time off from family planning. We traveled, we prayed a lot about God's plan for us. I always knew adoption was an option for me. I researched it, my husband ignored me, and he now states that at that time he just couldn't give up the dream of having that child with shared genetics. My sister had a pamphlet on an adoption meeting, talked him into going. He went through the steps just for me, but then we started agreeing that we wanted to use our money for adoption versus more treatments because we felt it was more of a guarantee, and that was just our path. We found our agency, completed the paperwork and tasks, and a year from the time we started the process, we brought home our 3-month-old son, Evan. We fell in love with him as soon as we met him. There are trials in adoption, but that's a whole nother talk. But it was more than worth it. 3 years later, we started the process again. 3 months later, we got the call that we were chosen. We walked through pregnancy with the birth mother, and we were both in the room when our daughter was born. She gave us our miracle grace, and that story is a whole book, literally. My children do come with trials, and there are hard days, but they complete us and have given us our dream of a family and a whole new perspective on life. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He settles the barren woman in her home as the happy mother of children. That's me. Here's our family last summer. There are many paths you might take, but if you want to be a parent and you do not give up, please leave here today knowing you will be a parent.
even I have some tears in my eyes right now. Do you want to give away some prizes? Got some great stuff to give away. Somebody clap or something. We gotta light it up in here. Do we have the baskets, Allison? Okay. Some great prizes. I raided the prize closet at work the other day. I